The Live Talk Show is about testimonies where you can listen to be inspired, encouraged, uplifted, and entertained. It's the life. Good morning. My name is Ashley Cotton, and I'm the host for the Live Talk Show. And today with me, I have Kenny Coulter as the guest. And so as you all know what this is, it's about testimonies. I believe that everyone has some kind of testimony where they can give God the glory as far as what he has done in your life and why you decided to choose Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and what that journey has been like with him, whether it's a before Christ moment and when you accepted him as your Lord and Savior, what it's been like thus far. And so I have my church announcements that I have to do regarding my two events that are happening. And that is the Going Back to School fundraiser, which is just the event actually taking place next Saturday, July 31st at 10 a.m. to 1. So make sure you get there. It's first come, first serve. There's going to be snacks provided. There's going to be haircuts and quick, cute little hairstyles for girls. And, a whole bunch of other things, as well as an already stuffed book bag with school supplies. And then also there's going to be rebuilding the temple of God, calling his daughters back to him, aligning the heart and mind for God's will and purpose, taking place Saturday, August 14th at Glory of Zion International. And so we're going to have a feet washing ceremony. There's going to be food provided and some dynamic, great speakers to pour into each and every one of us for what lies ahead, for the journey ahead. And so without further ado, here we go. Let's see. And I'm going to read about Mr. Kenny so you all can get an introduction as far as who he is. I always read the bio first. So, we can look at the accolades and look at, maybe your past history and the things that you've accomplished, the things of where you are now. And so therefore, when we unfold your journey and talk about your story, you all have a general brief idea. And so as a child, Kenny Coulter, grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. He is a graduate of O.D. White High School and received his bachelor's in healthcare administration and management from South University in Savannah, Georgia. He is a devoted husband and father, along with various other titles in relation to family. During his adolescence years, Kenny himself was influenced by the negative aspects of his surroundings. He quickly learned the severity of the influences in his social environment. In the height of the 90s, gangs and drug dealing were common to see, says Kenny, when asked about his experience growing up. When it came to life after high school, Kenny's options were typical: either go to college or get a job working for a solid company. Neither sounded feasible for Kenny. When asked about his future plans post-high school, Kenny's response to his guidance counselor warranted a call to his parents that changed his life forever. His parents made the decision to act promptly and send him to college in efforts to prevent losing Kenny to the streets completely. That was the turning point in which Kenny credits his parents and family for saving his life. So Kenny, let's just go right into it. That you had a decision to make and your parents intervened because whatever the conversation unfolded with your guidance counselor wasn't good.
Yes, ma'am. So just to be honest with you, I was very involved in a lot of negative things that were happening in the streets in the neighborhood. And my parents were both involved in my life, but I had a lot of free time. I had a lot of time to explore and get involved in a lot of different things. And I believe that it just took them to realize, okay, we better get involved and get a hand on this boy before he ends up doing something that's going to be detrimental. And I'll never forget, I was supposed to take the SAT, and I didn't do it. And so my guidance counselor asked me, he pulled me in his office. He said, "Why didn't you take the SAT?" I was like, "Man, I'm not trying to do that." And he was like, "Well, what are you trying to do? You need to get into college." I'm not worried about college. That's not what I'm trying to do. And so he asked, "Well, what are your plans?" I'm like, "Look, man, I'm gonna be in these streets till either I die or till I go to jail. Straight up. That was the only option I knew. That was the only thing that I saw that was gonna be in my future. Was either one of those two. We hear it all the time. They're going to be either dead or in jail. I mean, hey, if that's the fruit that I was fed, that's what I was going to bear. So
Yeah.
he called my mom and actually called my dad. And my dad was like, "Oh no, we're not going to have this." And so I'm talking about the next day or two, they took me to Houston. I didn't have an opportunity to say whether I wanted to go or not. I was ushered to Houston at Texas Southern University, and we toured the school. We sat and we talked to the counselors there, and then next thing I know, when the semester started, I was a TSU Tiger. So that's what that
Mm-hmm.
turned about. But it was probably one of the best opportunities that ever happened to me. It definitely got me away from the environment that I was in, but it also taught me the opportunity to learn how to be self-sufficient. I was
Mm-hmm.
already kind of doing my own thing, thinking I was grown in certain aspects, but this was a totally different experience for me. And at the same time, it was eye-opening because, you know, I never knew what college was. I mean, I always thought, when we talk about college, we talk about sitting in classes, listening to these teachers talk these long lectures, but you don't think about the different activities on the yard, the fraternities and the sororities, and I mean, just
Yeah.
the aspect of being involved in this college life period. So for me, it was a totally different experience, and I was like, man, I was about to throw all this away. So with that opportunity being provided for me, it definitely let me know that, okay, this is a different world out here. There is something different than what I'm accustomed to. It's something different than what I thought I could end up doing as an individual. So went to college, and I did very well. Made the dean's list, the entire night. I mean, I did everything. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't even know I could do these type of things. So I guess just from that point in life, from that point on, I just felt like anytime I'm going to do something, I'm going to push myself to try to do something that I've never done before, something I never
Mm-hmm.
dreamed I could do, something I never felt. Because to me, that's what that lesson taught me. That's what it taught me, that you can do anything that you put your mind to.
Right.
Everybody can say no. Everybody can say that, okay, yeah, well, you're destined to do this, you're destined to do that. But at the end of the day, if that's not what God got for you, what saying don't even matter. So,
Right.
man, I thank God for the opportunity, because it definitely showed me that there is opportunity. And that's the one
Okay.
thing a lot of us don't have.
And Kenny, I want to ask, what kind of student were you in high school?
The crazy thing about that, I was a good student. I was involved in a lot of distractions. I graduated. I didn't have any problems graduating. I had all my credits and whatnot, but it was just one of those things. I never applied myself like I could have.
Okay. Yeah.
I think at one point I was trying to find who I really was, that I fit in with this crowd, that I fit in with that crowd. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
realized, what, I ain't really trying to fit in with nobody. I'm just trying to be me. And at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, who was I? I was still trying to figure out who I was. And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a gangster. I think I'm this, I think I'm that. And I tried on all these different hats. I tried on all these different hats to see which one worked. And at the end of the day, they may have fit, but they didn't go with what God had designed for me. And that's the thing about it. I had to learn. I realized when I did involve myself in certain activities and did involve myself with certain cliques and certain things, I never felt comfortable. I might have fit
Mm-hmm.
in with those guys. I might have fit in with those activities, but I never felt comfortable. And that's a big thing to learn as an individual. If the
Mm-hmm.
situation doesn't feel comfortable for you, then it's not for you. And a lot of times I feel
Mm-hmm.
like we try to push ourselves to fit in those situations. We try to push ourselves to be comfortable. And that's why we find a lot of people who are unhappy with how things are going, because we're steady trying to fit into something that wasn't designed for us to be in the first place.
Absolutely. And so what was the model behind, because you grew up with, both of your parents. So you had your father in your life as an example to look to, and as well as your mother, that whole, unity and dynamic. And so what was the structure at home that
So,
would make you want to gravitate towards activities and streets and everything of that nature?
so that's a great question. I think that's probably the question that's going to flip the whole dynamic of the conversation. I grew up with both parents in my life, but I didn't live with both of my parents. My dad
Okay.
was a good guy, a good dude. He was involved in my life, but he was also concerned about doing him. Now, I'm not saying that to make him a bad person or anything like that. That's just how our relationship was. My dad was a very intelligent person. I think that's one of the things. He's probably one of the primary reasons why I happen to be a little bit intellectual. But my dad was a very smart guy, but he was also one of those guys that had a lot of different things going on too. My mom, she worked her behind off to take care of me and my sister, so she was always working. But it just got to a point when I got a certain age, my mom and I couldn't click because she was trying to control me. And I'm like, look, you're not even here to control me. You're not even around to try to tell me what to do. You trying to fuss at me over the phone. That's not going to happen. So I ended up moving with my aunt. I lived with my aunt in a neighborhood called
Mm.
Highland Hill in Southwest Fort Worth. And pretty much my aunt took over from, I want to say about eighth grade to about high school when I, graduated or whatever. But my aunt was a nurse. So she was always working too. So that just gave me a lot of free time. I had a car. I had other opportunities. I was doing some of everything. I was here. I was there. I was everywhere. But like I said, my parents were around. They were involved, but they weren't as involved. It wasn't a typical parent to child relationship. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And who made the decision for you to move with your aunt? Because I'm thinking if you and your mom are bumping heads, then dad would step up and say, okay, son, it's time for you to move in with me because manhood and you getting older.
right, right.
So
So
who made the decision for you to transition to your auntie?
I think that was a decision that was kind of agreed upon by my mother, my aunt, and myself. My aunt that I lived with was, I mean, she was probably like my second mother, to be honest with you. And we had a really good relationship. And I think the thing that was great between she and I was the fact that she was more so of a listener. She was willing to listen and understand what was going on versus my mama
Mm-hmm.
telling me what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. And that doesn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
my mother wasn't loving, because my mom loves me to death. We have a wonderful relationship now. We had a good relationship then. It's just she didn't know how to raise a young man. And at the time, like I said, this is the height of the 90s. You got all kind of stuff going on. You got,
Yeah.
I mean, it's real in these streets. Now, if I speak on my dad was a good dude. Loved my dad to death. But he was more concerned about certain things that he had going on. I could come to him for certain things that I wanted to talk about, but it wasn't the typical type of conversation that a father would have with his son. It was more
Right.
so one of those type of conversations that the OG would have with the young G in the hood. And that's just the way our relationship was for a long time until he got a little bit older and matured. And then I realized, like, look, man, this is not how a father-son dynamic works. Not for it to be conducive to what I'm trying to do. So I think later on in life, once we got to understand it, our relationship turned out a lot better. But I was grown then. When I needed you to teach me how to shave and how to line up my hair and all these things, that's when I needed you. But he's
Mm.
more concerned with other things. So I think because of that, and because of the fact that as a young boy, I don't care what anybody says, you need a father. You need a male role model. You need somebody in your life. I mean, and I wasn't looking for discipline. I wasn't looking for, he didn't have to know how to do everything. I just needed you there.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I think probably when I was about maybe 21, 22, I realized how important the lack of my father's interaction with me affected me. And it's not to say that I'm a victim at all, because I'm not. I'm a victor if I'm anything. But during the
Right.
time that I was growing up, I realized my dad was in the band when he was he went to this high school called Dunbar High School. And my dad was in this
What, in
band
Chicago and in Texas?
in Texas, here in Fort Worth.
Oh, we have a
Yeah,
Dunbar in Chicago too.
yeah. He went to Paul Lawrence Dunbar and Stop Six area. So my dad's from Stop Six area, Fort Worth. And I wanted to be like my dad in so many different ways that, I started playing saxophone in the band. I learned how to play drums. I learned how to do all these different things just to have something for us to have in common,
Yeah,
I,
connection.
exactly. And as I got older, I realized my dad dibbled and dabbled in certain things, which I figured, well, maybe if I can show my credibility in these areas, that maybe it'll strengthen the bond between us. But eventually it
Yeah.
never did, because if I just be honest about it, it was a certain point where he hadn't matured yet to be ready to be the type of father he needed to be. if that makes sense. And I just think he was focused on taking care of his personal endeavors and doing him enjoying life. And when we get to that point, we get to that point. I guess is how he felt. But by the time we got there, I was an adult.
Mm,
And truly
mm.
so, I grew up in a household full of women. So my aunts were really my first big sister. Those were my best friends, to be honest with you. I happened to be one of those young men who was raised by a family full of women. My grandmother, being the matriarch of the family, she made sure that somebody tried to stay on me. But the thing was, once I got to a certain age, what can you do? I mean, he's going to
Now,
do.
Kenny, I'm sorry not to cut you off. Are you finished with your
Yes, yes,
statement? Okay. So, Kenny, now let's switch gears for a moment because you just said something that you grew up in a family full of women,
correct.
and the women influence, which can, make you strong, and they can push you to say, no, you're going to be great and you can do it and all of these things. But on the flip side as well, how growing up in a house full of women or in a family full of women, how did you manage to come into your own manhood? Because we know how it can flip and
Right,
be a different kind of way
right,
where, we don't want that to happen, where you grow up to be feminine and,
right.
taking on girly characteristics. So how did you come into your manhood?
Got you. So one of my first, or one of I said the primary influence of a male figure for me was my grandfather. So with my dad and my mom, they divorced, I think, probably when I was about maybe 2 or 3. So I spent the majority of my time on my mom's side of the family with my grandmother and grandmother. Like I said, my grandmother and grandfather. Like I said, my
Mm-hmm.
mom worked all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
my grandfather was really there to instill a lot into me. But he had all daughters. So I mean, and I do have an older uncle. I have an uncle. He's the oldest of all of them. But at the time, he was in the streets himself. So I think my grandfather just like, look, we gonna do what we can to keep Kenny out of trouble, and we gonna just love on Kenny, do whatever. So he did his part, and of course, my grandmother and my aunts, they did their thing to try to teach me right from wrong, and I respect it with no problem. But it's still, I don't know. It just wasn't enough to keep me at bay. And then the sad thing is, I think my freshman year going into high school, my grandfather died, and I took that very hard because
Mm.
I mean, I vividly remember praying like, God, please, like, just of all people, don't take him, take somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't take my grandfather. You know what I'm saying? Because he was the primary male figure in my life. But once he passed, I don't know. I think that's when I started really trying to get involved in hanging around other boys because the flip side, it's a lot of twists and turns to this story in this life of mine. Okay, I
Yeah.
grew up on the side of town. Before I even went to the black schools, I was at the Hispanic school. You know what I'm saying? I was the only black kid from pre-K to sixth grade. You hear me? So
Yeah.
when I finally get around the black kids, I don't even know how to act. I'm walking around like Vato and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm still
Yo,
um,
S.A. Holmes.
yeah, yeah. So it's a lot of different twists and turns to this story. But at the end of the day, the male role models in my life were the ones that influenced me, whether it was good influence or bad. Like I said, I had my grandfather up to a certain point. He did the best that he could, but once he was gone, I didn't have nobody else to check me. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe that is me speaking. That is the truth coming out. I didn't have anybody else to check me. My daddy wasn't gonna do it. He might have, like I said, I knew who my daddy was. My daddy was a barber too. My daddy cut my hair like every week. But that was as far as it got. We didn't have that type of relationship. So that's my dad. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
So me getting in the streets, and I mean, and I probably didn't even answer your question like you asked about my aunts. My aunts did what they could, and out of respect for them, I adhered to the things that they say. I didn't. I mean, just because I felt like they weren't men and they couldn't teach me how to be. I mean, it doesn't mean I had to be disrespectful to them. That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I grew up to respect them, especially my grandma. I love my grandmother to death.
Yeah.
And I think the upbringing of us being around to each other all the time. I grew up in one of those families where My grandmother was the mother of the church. One aunt was the secretary. The other aunt was the choir director. I was on the drums. The other aunt was the treasurer. So I grew up in church. I was one of those people that had one foot in the church and one foot in the street. That's just how it was. So
Mm-hmm.
based on that upbringing, I knew to respect my aunts, but I just knew once I got away from them and I had time to do me, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I got.
Now, like so many of us, Kenny, when you just mentioned one church, one foot in the church and one foot in the street, why is that battle? Like, I know we don't battle against flesh and blood, but within ourselves, our inner man, we're battling. Our spirit is battling with our flesh, with our will versus God's will. So, what do you say to that if someone now is battling between what the world has, as example, as you know, we see with Kanye West, right? He's gifted, he's talented. He, at one upon a time, was, about God and singing in the churches that would
Right.
have him and everything. And then now he just did release a video of him, in an arena sold out to where he is going back. And so the thing is that the battle is real. Like the struggle is real. The battle is real to fully surrender because listen, once you fully surrender to God, then you have a enemy, an invisible enemy that you just really didn't sign up for.
Definitely. I think that, like you said, that battle is real, and you have to determine how you want to handle that battle. And see, a lot of times we hear people say, "Well, the battle is not yours; it's the Lord's." Yeah, but you got to come to that understanding because if you don't know what's going on, you just know that you have certain temptations here, and you got certain things going on here. You're going to waver to whatever you feel, whatever you're weakest to. For me, it was the streets. It was the young girls in the streets that thought I was cute at some point in time. It was getting that fresh pair of J's and pulling up and feeling like the man and getting that clout, and that wasn't what it was about. Sometimes we have our flesh needs to be fed, whether it's sexual, whether it's through drugs, whether it's through people just building you up with ego, whatever you want to call it. Your flesh has to be fed. But until you realize how to subdue that, until you realize how to subdue those passions and succumb to the will of God, then it's going to forever be a battle that you're not going to know how to deal with. And it took me, even now as an adult, there's still moments when I might feel a certain way. I might just fall victim to just frustration, to anger when I know I shouldn't. That's human nature. But at the end of the day, it takes you to have an understanding of who God is in your life. When you have an understanding of who God is and how much power you have from him, how much favor you have from him, how much he just loves you enough to take care of things. When you learn all these things about the relationship that you have with God, that's where your strength comes from. That's what motivates me. That's what takes me to the next level is knowing, okay, you know what? We are in a tough spot right here. We're doing something different right here, but guess what? It's not me that got to worry about this by myself. I got somebody that got my back. And once you
Mm-hmm.
actually know that, that's when things turn around for you. That's when you start to understand that this battle definitely isn't yours, it's the Lord's. But it takes you to go through certain experiences. And I think if you've never really experienced God, and especially when you're young, when you're young, you got parents to take care of you, or you have someone who may be trying to take care of you, somebody who's giving you this and giving you that, but you really don't have to totally depend on God a lot of times at that, in those adolescent ages. But as you get a little bit older, you start going through different trials and tribulations. You start going through different afflictions, different things that are starting to happen in your life. And sometimes mama don't have the answer. Sometimes daddy don't have the answer. You have no choice but to say, God, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end
Yeah.
of I just thank God that my family did instill an understanding of who God was and allowed me the opportunity to establish a relationship and accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior so that I could have that foundation later on in life.
And what was your come to moment? What was the point where you said, you know what? I have to surrender and really walk this thing out?
Which one of them? It's more than one. I just think there have been
What
a
was
lot.
the pivotal moment? What was that one that said, you know what, enough is enough? I know that there's many of them, right? I know that we all go to the altar and we repent and we say our spiel and we cry and everything like that. But what is the very moment when you say enough is enough and God says enough is enough, come to me, give it to me, and then you try with the best of your ability with the Holy Spirit to walk this straight and narrow path out?
So I can tell you right now, I got two of them. They hit right back to back. So I want to say probably when I was about 19, 20, um, I was in the front yard of my house. My sister was there, and my best friend at the time, who happened to be one of my neighbors. We were just sitting in the yard chilling. And earlier that day, I had gotten into a little altercation with some guys in the neighborhood. And while we were in that driveway, I see the car pull up at the corner, and they just stop. And so we see the gun come out. I tell everybody, get down, get down. My sister jump on the ground. I'll get on the ground. And my best friend at the time, he's like, what is that? What is that? I hear the gun click, click, click. It don't fire. They drive off, right?
Okay.
At that moment, I'm like, wait a minute. Did this just really happen? Next day, it's myself, my cousin, and that same friend. That same friend stay down the street. So we are sitting in front of my house, actually sitting in front on the curb, just chilling, talking. And some guys from the neighborhood walk up, and we just out there doing our thing. At the time, my cousin was visiting from Houston, and he had on some different colors than what was typical for us to be around at that point in time. So while my cousin, I got his back. So they like, hey man, what's up with your boy with this color on? I'm like, man, hey, he not even part of this right here. That's none of your business. Next thing I know, they trying to jump on my cousin. I'm not gonna let that happen. Not me. So me and this kid get into it. It's two dudes. So me and this dude get into it. We box it out, and the other dude come. Well, next thing I know, I see my friend's dad. He's coming down the street. All I hear is him say, no. And he hits the dude's hand. He hits that dude's hand, a gun falls out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, this is real. Like, these cats is really ready to kill behind these colors and behind ignorance. And the thing is about me, I ain't never been the hardest dude on the block. I got hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I ain't never been the dude here trying to make that reputation like I'm the hardest gang member in the world and like that. I'm like, man, this ain't even, this ain't what I signed up for. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so at that moment, I was like, you know what, man, I got to do something different in my life, man. And I'll never forget, man, I called my grandmother and she was like, what's going on? I'm like, Granny, man, they up here trying to kill me. It was just too much.
Yeah.
And like I said, you got to remember, that was one of the hats I was trying on. I didn't like the way that hat looked with my outfit. It didn't fit my outfit the way it needed to. So I had to take that hat off. Look, this is not for me. But I was like, God, you're going to have to show me something different, man. You have to do something different. I gotta do something different. Well, at the time, like I said, I mean, shoot, I was already involved in college and stuff like that, but I just needed something else to do. I had to end up moving. I was like, let me get out of this neighborhood. But at the end of the day, that was the moment because I realized that not only do the things that I do affect myself, but they affect the people around me. What if that gun went to jam and they had to kill my partner? How can I explain that? What if the next day, what if his dad wasn't there to knock that gun at this dude's hand? You know what I'm saying? Like, these streets are real. And people don't understand how easily it is to get caught up in some of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So trust me, I'll never forget that back to back. That was enough for me. That was enough for me.
Where are you now?
As far as what? How be more specific? Where am I now?
Where are you now as far as, the things that God has you doing? Like if you want to talk about your development with, the nonprofit, if you want to just explain to us, where he has you to be right now in your life, in your endeavors.
Definitely. I will definitely love to go down that road. I would say that my life has turned and did complete 180. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I still have ties to different people from back in the day, but we've all grown. We've all evolved into different people. And I think that's the blessing about change. A lot of people feel like, they have this saying like, man, you done changed on me. You right. I'm supposed to. I'm not supposed to be the same person I was 20 years ago. I'm not supposed to be the same person I was yesterday, to be honest with you. So me going through a situation of growth over the last couple of years has been amazing because not only has my relationship with God strengthened, but my relationship with family, having to establish a better relationship with my dad, who eventually ended up becoming a pastor of his own. He had his own congregation, had his own church. Just
Oh, wow, your dad.
he did, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So because of my involvement in trying to get my life together, it had an influence, it had an impact on him, changed
Mm-hmm.
his life. My mom and I, like I said, our relationship, once I got over that hump of trying to, put my chest out, once I grew up and got over that hump and was able to just realize I need to be a son to my mother, I mean, our relationship just took off even further. We've never had a bad relationship to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
She just didn't know how to reach me. She didn't know how to, you know, help this young man. But because of the relationships that I have with my parents, it taught me one important thing. And that important thing is, as a black young man in this country, in this city, in this state, as a black young man in this world, period, you need to have positive role models. You need to have men of influence to help guide you in the direction that you are supposed to go. A lot of times we feel like we want to do this, we want to do that, but we never know what God wants us to do. And we don't understand these things until we get the opportunity to see what else is different. That was the thing for me. I didn't know I could go to college. I didn't know I was smart enough to sustain and be able to make it to graduate college. And as a
Mm-hmm.
result, me being put in the situations that I was in, I was given the opportunity. Opportunity is the big word. That's a key word right there. It's providing the opportunity for kids to be and to learn about the different things they can be. Because of that, because of my journey, because of the endeavors and the different things that I've experienced in life, my wife and I were sitting back talking one day about a lot of different things. It just so happens that my wife was in education. She's an administrator. And we were talking about some of the experiences that she had with the young black men in her school on her campus. And as a result, we was like, what can we do to help influence these young boys to be better, to realize that there are other opportunities? So we came up with the idea to create a mentoring program, a leadership program. So we came up with a nonprofit called Kings Creating Kings. Kings
Mm-hmm.
Creating Kings is a leadership program that we take these young boys and we have a curriculum that covers three primary pillars. The first pillar is etiquette and social engagement. The second one is student leadership. And the third is education and employment forecasting. By trying to cover these three pillars, hopefully we can provide some opportunity for these young men to understand that there's a whole nother world out there. You just have to be exposed to it. One of the things that I can tell people is that through my life, once I made up in my mind I wanted to do something, I did it. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to work in radio. Got the degree, went to school for radio. Got the degree,
Mm-hmm.
ended up working in radio, went to syndicated radio. I ended up working for the legendary Tom Joyner for years, right in the studio with him.
Oh,
You know,
nice. Yeah.
that was something I never knew I could do. Nobody told me growing up I could do that. At another point in my life, I said, you know what? I really like to cook. Maybe I can do something different. I prayed about it. The opportunity presented itself. I went to culinary school, got a culinary degree. Worked my way up to be an executive chef of not just one or two, but quite a few successful ventures.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those opportunities. I mean, my wife is always saying that, baby, you always doing something different because I didn't have the opportunity to do those things when I was younger. So now as I'm getting older and I've matured, I find the different things that I like. And those are the things that I gravitate to. I want to be the best in them. I want to learn as much as I can about them. I want to invest
Mm-hmm.
as much as my time as I can in order to grow. And even with me as an adult, the key word is still opportunity. It's the
Right.
opportunity to be able to do these things. So from working in syndicated radio to being an executive chef to even working in the healthcare field, these are opportunities that kids don't know about. Nobody talked to me about being able to do those things when I was in my adolescent years. If you asked me when I was a kid what I wanted to be when I grew up, a ball player, an entertainer, as most kids, because that's what we see. That's what
Right.
we see. We look on the TV and we see, these sports, these athletes. We see these entertainers having these great lives, but nobody tells us what there are other opportunities. So that's what Kings Creating Kings is about. It's the opportunity to show these young boys through positive figures, figures that they can relate to. If another successful black man is reaching down to this child to show him, hey, young man, look, this is what you can do. This is the type of business we have. This is something you can do later on in life. It's providing the opportunities, and that's what Kings Creating Kings is basically about: is to provide the opportunities, but not just the opportunity to show them something different, to show them life skills, to show them how men can, as black men in this world, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot that comes against us. It's a lot that we have to face, but there's unification.
Mm-hmm.
Every black man ain't your enemy just because we grew up on a different side of town. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these things are lessons that we don't learn until we get older. So maybe if we start taking these lessons now and start passing down to these younger boys, by the time they get our age, they're totally different men. Their generation has changed. So that's what Kings Creating Kings is really about, is trying to create the opportunity to raise these young men into being something more than what their social environment shows them.
And what age groups do you take on?
Our current age group is from ages 8 to 14. And we pick those age groups because right around age 8 is when you have the boys that can pay attention. They can listen and follow direction a little bit more. They're not as easily distracted as some of the younger boys. And 14, we stopped at 14 just because at 14, you're hitting high school, you know, and you are probably already a freshman. This is your first year in school, and you're trying to figure out, which direction you want to go. What we wanted to do was kind of get them to the point where once they hit high school, they had an idea of who they were. They had an idea
Right.
of their, who they are as individuals, the things that they
Mm-hmm.
like, the things that they don't like, and they're comfortable saying no to different things that come their way. Now, of course, once the curriculum is over with, at that specific age, that doesn't stop the intent of the program. We still follow up with them. We still talk to them. We still mentor. We still bring them around because we want to create a lifelong relationship with each one of these young men that go through this program. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that's going to be doing this. Once I'm not on this earth anymore, this program is still here. These young men are the ones who are going to be giving back to the others. So we're just trying to create an opportunity where you have this chain of young men growing up and giving back, because that's what we should be doing
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Yes, absolutely. And for more information, you all can go to kingcreatingkings.org,
Correct.
right?
That is correct.
Kingscreatingkings.org. And so, is there anything else that you want to share with us or tell us what the Lord is placing on your heart to say before we end our show?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share your platform with you on this morning, and for the opportunity to give a little insight about myself. It's not something I really do a lot. I don't really tell people a lot of my personal things, but I appreciate this. And it was beneficial for me. So bless you. Thank you. And I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Kenny. So before you go, I have my fire rapid questions that
Okay.
I ask everybody. So these are just quick answers. The first one is, what is your favorite verse in the Bible?
Woo! Real quick, real quick, real quick, real quick. I got a couple of them. Real quick. The one that's coming to mind, Proverbs 26. I want to say it's Proverbs 26. Train a child in the way that he is to go, and when he is old, he should not depart from it.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Number
that
two. Yeah, that's good.
okay?
That's
Good.
good. Number two, how do you get into the presence of the Lord?
I take time. No TV, no phone, no nothing. I take time and I listen. I talk. I communicate. I
Number three. Oh,
yes. No, go ahead.
number number three. What do you think heaven will be like?
That I can't tell you. I'm excited to see what it's going to be. It's beyond my expectation. I couldn't tell you, but I'm looking forward
Mm-hmm.
to it.
Number four, who would you like to meet in heaven? It can be from the Old Testament or New Testament.
I want to see Jesus. I want to see Jesus. The song say I want to see Jesus. I want to see him. That's what I want to see first and foremost. From there, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then the number five, given the opportunity where you're face to face in a quiet, intimate setting with God, and it's just you and Him, what would you say to Him?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to have this life. Thank you for the things that I learned. Thank you for the things that you protected me from. Thank you for everything that is to come that hasn't came. I just thank you, because I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be here. He didn't have to give me the opportunities that he's given me. I couldn't be here right now. So I thank him every day. That's the easy one for me. I thank him every day, all day. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's it.
And the bonus question, given, well, all the things that you've been through, like your past, and don't nobody know like God knows, and where you are now, and not knowing what the future holds, right? But He holds your future. And so you just have to walk this thing out, your journey out by faith. You know, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or any of us. So is it worth having a relationship with Him still?
Yeah,
Like, you know, there's people who are angry, who are upset because this is not the way I thought that life would be. And none of us are exempt from life from happening. But you have those instances where people get angry and upset and dismiss and just say, you know what, I've had it, and they walk away. Is it worth all of that to be in a relationship with Him?
it's worth that and more. Because at the end of the day, guess what? I get mad. I get frustrated. I question God. God, why is this happening? Come on, God. I know we're not going to go through this again. God, why am I going through that? But at the end of the day, it's the reassurance that you get from Him. It's that favor that He shows you in the midst of everything that's going on. That one little thing, you just, oh, well, God, you didn't have to do that. It's the times when you're going through the fire that you sit back and realize, man, I'm not doing this by myself. Something is amazing is happening. It's definitely worth it, because at the end of the day, what I've learned through everything I've been through is that God has always shown me, no matter what you're going through, I got your back. That's the honest
Mm-hmm.
God. I wouldn't lie about that. Trust
Well, that is all for our show. Thank you so much, Kenny, for sharing
me.
with us and being transparent, especially with the whole dynamic with you and your father and your mother, and just having a community built around you, a family who just wouldn't let you go astray, wouldn't let you go too far. And a lot of us at this point in time need community. We all need one another, you know, to further advance what God is doing in us and around us in our community. So thank you so much for sharing that. You guys, I will see you next Saturday. July 31st is the going back to school event. And so I hope that you all can just come out, and it's going to be a family event, and just getting to know the community of where we are, and having them to know us, that we want to be a pillar within the community to say, hey, we are a resource of help, whatever it is that you may be lacking, whatever it is it may be you are needing to help with your children. You know, the Life 14:6, it helps for single fathers and single parents with the necessities from their children. So it goes from newborn to college bound students. And so I just want to, you know, be a blessing. I'm blessed to be a blessing, right? To share in God's goodness, to advance the kingdom. And so with that said, guys, I will see you next Saturday. I will do a live from the event. So I'm very excited about it. And thank you once again, Kenny. God bless you all for watching, for listening. Share this, you know, go to creatingkings.org and just get the information that you can just share and pass on as well. This is very rare. There's a lot of mentoring programs and everything, but this is a team of Black men, individuals who want to pour into our sons, you know, who may not have that father figure, or may, you know, almost be close on the brink of losing them to the streets. And so this is an opportunity. This is a great program to sow into. And so God bless you all. Take care. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. It really means a lot to continue on with what God has purposed me to do. And so with that said, God bless you, and I will see you guys next Saturday.